that has the right to control?
It doesn't have the right to do jack shit.
Okay, could you give a short definition of what you call government?
Yes, that would be those people who wish to initiate aggression against me and have a right to do with me as they wish because I am their slave, I am their helot, and I live on their tax jurisdiction called a plantation.
Good, good. The only issue I would take is, given that definition, why would you call them government and not the carjacker and the local mugger and the... What distinguishes the two?
You know, I don't think that there's much more distinction except one is licensed and one is not by the state to do what they do. But in the end, there is one government that I do believe in, and that is self-government, because I think that the essence of government in and of itself is a term that delineates precisely how one governs one's behavior or the behavior of others. If we isolate it to self-government, then that fits most everybody here before us, because that means that we have accepted that our destinies and our fates are captained only by ourselves.
Okay, I would agree with that, except I tend to refrain from using the term government. But I still want to hear, like, the definition of government was, it sounded like the distinction between government and street gang was, one was licensed, but it's licensed by itself. So if the street gang says, yeah, we give ourselves permission to do it, would you then call them government?
I would not. And the reason that I don't do that is because remember that from my investigation of governments and states and as they exist on the planet, as we recognize them now, there is extra-governmental violence in underground economies, for instance. For instance, if we look south of the border, I'm from Arizona, we have a tremendous amount of difficulties in our small burg in southern Arizona because we have illegal immigration, we have drug problems, things like that. This is the way it is characterized by the state. But the main reason it is characterized that way by the state is because, like with all crises in government, government creates these because of the very behaviors that they exhibit in the first place and that they practice over the long term. Why is Mexico in such a bad way? There are a lot of cultural and socioeconomic factors, not to mention the fact that they mimicked the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917 when the Pre-Party came into power to be maximum government. But our drug policies are what drive the governments south of the border to be more corrupt than most. I don't know what that would be, Larken, actually, more corrupt than most. But I mean, because we're talking about the worst of the worst here. We're talking about a sociopathic and psychotic sense whereby these anointed people have literally the power of life and death over you. For instance, I spoke yesterday. If you're not wearing a seatbelt, they have to have the potential to murder you for not wearing that seatbelt.
Yep.
That's pretty psychotic.
Yep. But, I'm going to drag you back. Why do you call them government and you don't call the gang government that says we give ourselves right to do it?
Licensure.
From who?
From themselves.
Yeah, but if the gang did it and said, we're allowed to do this.
Well, remember, even though the Bloods and Crips behave like governments, they're not authorized governments. By those who
they
give
authorize
themselves. Well, they certainly do, but not in the sense where you were talking earlier in your brilliant oration about why the government has so many people bamboozled, this Boise, as Mencken would say it, bamboozled into thinking that if I don't allow people to have the ability to find, cage, maim, kidnap, and kill me, I'm never going to be safe. What the fuck's up with that?
It was their parents.
Right.
For those of you who don't like coarse language on YouTube, there it is.
Like there's no other coarse language on YouTube.
Right.
Yep. The only issue I would take with any of that is that continuing to call it government sort of gives it a quality it doesn't have. Like they give themselves permission to do it. I would say if there's any distinguishing factor, it's that most people believe them when they pretend to have the right to do it. But I would say that, even the licensing themselves is a difference without a difference. Gangs do it too. We're allowed to do this because we can. And so I would just say that the term government doesn't apply to anything that actually really exists or ever has.
So maybe this will be the time to make an important distinction between pacifism and defensive behavior against initiated aggression. I personally consider pacifism to be the road to self-extinction, for the most part. If you don't respond to violence that is aggressed against you, eventually you and or your tribe that is extra-national, extra-governmental, extra-status, where you don't want to comply with anything they do, they may find a means to hunt you down and eliminate you from the food chain entirely.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Because when people say, you know, I'm going to be passive, I'm going to resist passively because I don't want violence. Well, as soon as the state enters in, there already is violence. The question is, will it be unilateral violence or will it be responded to with defensive violence? And while I understand and I know a bunch of people who are pacifists, I think in a way it actually conveys legitimacy to what they're doing to sit there and let them beat the tar out of you or drag you away and put you in a cage. Even if it's to make a statement, even if the rest of the world looks at it and says, yeah, the thugs are really bad, that it actually, to pretend, basically to treat them in any way that you wouldn't treat the gang who come, like nobody would say, I'm going to passively resist the Bloods and Crips to make a statement. If they had a gun, they'd shoot back. And to act any other way actually conveys legitimacy to your attackers. Which again is why I don't think there is any real distinction between what is called government and any other gang of thugs and thieves.
So in essence what you're saying is that any mechanism can be a status mechanism that initiates aggression through force or fraud.
Yeah,
Okay.
It can be legal or illegal, and I think being legal or illegal means absolutely nothing. It's terms that thieves use to try to trick their victims into thinking they should put up with it.
Because there's no confluence between illegality and immorality necessarily.
Right.
Because of malum prohibitum laws.
Yeah, so to me something being legal or illegal means absolutely nothing in any context.
This is a sneaky way for us to get together on the stage so I can rehearse and practice with Larken, because at 2 o'clock he and I are both going to be up here, I guess, just pontificating.
What are we doing?